All right, folks, let's talk about this full moon in Aries, which I can't believe is happening in a few hours. I'm slightly ashamed for not getting this video out earlier. The full moon, as all full moons do, has had its own momentum. I wonder if you all have felt it. And all of a sudden, here we were, and I was like, well, it's tomorrow. And I was just like, well, it's tomorrow, but it's almost practically for a lot of us today. So, I'm going to trust that the timing is right and it's going to find you when it is meant to find you, this particular video. The sun is in Aries. Excuse me, the sun is in Libra and the moon is in Aries, full, opposite the sun. The full moon itself this time around is unaspected, which is fine. We don't always need a complicated full moon. But it's complicated enough by the fact that it is an Aries. Now, an Aries moon is a notoriously discontented moon. But there's a lot going on around this full moon that is really wonderfully supportive. The first thing that I want to say about this full moon is that it is our first lunation and our first full moon after both Venus and Mercury have gone direct. And I can't imagine. Not only have they gone direct, if you look at the video I did just before this, where I was wrapping up the themes related to Venus and Mercury retrograde, you should know that as we head into early next week, October 2nd, October 3rd, Mercury will be wrapping up its retrograde degrees and forming its final aspects that it was unable to make because it went retrograde. But then specifically, I'm referring to Mercury opposing Neptune on October the 2nd. There is, of course, one other aspect that's going to make the day after the Taurus lunar eclipse on October 28th. But for all intents and purposes, at least as far as clearing the shadow degrees and moving into a new set of degrees for the first time since August, Mercury is wrapping up its Mercury retrograde cycle at around the time of this full moon, shortly after the time of this full moon. And it does make one important transit, very close to the full moon that, as far as I'm concerned, is encoded in the full moon, and that is Mercury trining Uranus. It was unable to trine Uranus when it, because it went retrograde just before it was able to do so, and it does so a day or two after the full moon. Venus, who will continue to work through her retrograde degrees till about October 7th or so, also shortly after the full moon, and this is the closest transit that the full moon sees, is squaring Uranus for the third time. She has squared Uranus twice before, once when she was direct, once when retrograde, and now for the final time. Venus also is getting ready around October 2nd or 3rd, depending on how you calculate the North Node, getting ready to trine the North Node for the second time. Lovely. And there's one more transit that is encoded into this particular full moon, and that is Mars conjuncting the South Node. So the four transits that are encoded into this full moon are Venus squaring Uranus for the third and final time, Venus trining the North Node for the second time, Mercury finally being able to trine Uranus now that he is direct, and Mars conjuncting the South Node at the degree, pretty much. And other astrologers, I'm sure, have noted this as well, that you've been watching, at the degree where the Libra solar eclipse is going to occur in 2 weeks' time. This particular full moon, even though it is the full moon after the Virgo new moon 2 weeks ago, is really related to the Libra new moon because it is an Aries full moon. Sometimes, as I've explained to you before, a new moon happens before its corresponding full moon. And sometimes, like right now, like these days, like these months, the full moon is happening first. So some of the themes or the issues or the support or the visibility, which is an important word for this particular full moon I'm finding, or the visibility that this full moon provides, is somehow bringing things to the surface and bringing things to our attention that we may well need to have a plan that may well be part of the eclipse cycle, and in particular the Libra eclipse cycle that we're going to be entering. There's a solar eclipse in Libra on October the 14th, and in March of 2024, there's a corresponding lunar eclipse in Libra. It is a south node eclipse, so it is an eclipse of release in the Libra part of the chart. And I know we're not at the Libra eclipse yet, but just continue to hear me out here. In the Libra part of the chart, wherever Libra sits in your chart, what house it occupies, what that house stands for, something needs to be released to allow the north node eclipses in the Aries part of the chart to continue to take hold. The Aries part of the chart is where we lean into and we develop and we follow in a grounded manner, making sure that we're clear whenever it comes to the nodes of the moon, making sure it's clear as to what our relationship is with our security versus our relationship with our sense of adventure and our growth. The adventure and the growth and the call are going to be unavoidable, but it's important to ensure that you are clear about what makes you comfortable. Well, this is the thing about comfort though, right? Because it can prevent you. You've got to find the balance that works for you between following the call in the Aries part of the chart and remaining in the part of the chart where there's comfort. But this is very nodal, what I'm saying right now. Very, very nodal. But somewhere there is going to be, and it's a chicken and egg scenario. You have to release in the Libra part of the chart to lean into the Aries part of the chart, and the Aries part of the chart is going to call you enough and you're going to have to lean into it that it's going to create a corresponding release in the Libra part of the chart. When we have eclipses, sometimes when we have a solar eclipse and a corresponding lunar eclipse, and we're going to be in the Libra eclipse cycle very shortly, a lot of people will look at what do I need to release in the Libra part of the chart. But just keep in mind that some of that will happen automatically. You might find that during this Libra eclipse cycle, it's actually clearer what's calling you in the Aries part of the chart, because it's that call and that pull and where you need to head to and what you need to develop in the Aries part of the chart, what you need to lean into and what you need to follow that will create the circumstances for a corresponding release in the Libra part of the chart. It will all continue to become clear. But what is fascinating is that Mars conjuncts the South Node within a few days of this full moon, the same degree that we've got the Libra new moon eclipse at in 14 days. And, I tend to think that we're going to enter eclipse season in about a week's time, the week before the Libra eclipse to the week after the Taurus eclipse on October 28th. So that puts us to the end of the first week of November, roughly. But as I've explained in recent previous videos, both the Venus and especially the Mercury retrograde have very much been in conversation with these eclipses. Very much so. Now, when we've got Venus squaring Uranus and Mercury trining Uranus and Venus trining the North Node at the same time that Mars conjuncts the South Node, there's opportunity in the air. There are fated developments in the air. With Uranus in Taurus getting this kind of activation, the Taurus part of our chart has seen eclipses of leaning into, eclipses of being called into, eclipses of development since September 2021. The last of the eclipses in Taurus, the North Node eclipses, for now, is going to occur on October 28th. Uranus is in Taurus right now. Jupiter is in Taurus right now. Uranus, for the next 2 or 3 more years, is going to continue its task of making our relationship to the Taurus part of our chart. Where does Taurus sit in your chart? What house does it occupy? What does that house stand for? More authentic and individual to us. Uranus transits are exciting. They can be seen as rebellious. They can be seen as nonconformist. They are all those things simply by virtue of the fact that Uranus is actively trying to create situations and outcomes that are individual to the unique you in the part of the chart where Taurus sits in your chart, the house that it occupies. Venus squaring Uranus for the third time means or implies that in the Leo part of the chart, some Venusian action needs to take place. Relationships, money, attracting opportunities, responding to opportunities, luck, that needs to occur to allow Uranus to do its job. And Mercury from Virgo looking at and trining Uranus implies that some sort of communication related to the Virgo part of your chart, what house does Virgo sitting in your chart, what does that stand for, supports Uranus's attempt to make the Taurus part of your chart more authentic. Fine, fantastic. The North Node is in Aries and the South Node is in Libra. So when we talk about Venus trining the North Node, some activity that Venus is going to produce may already be, but this continues over the next, I'll say it continues over the weekend towards October 2nd, 3rd, 4th. There could be some opportunity or something that is brewing, that has been accelerating, and that continues. For some people, some opportunities already manifested or that supports where it is that we're meant to find our development, where it is that we're meant to find our calling. And a trine to the North Node, you know, Venus is the one planet out of these 4 transits that features twice. So Venus in Leo, finishing up in the last few degrees of Leo, finishing up its retrograde cycle, is still, Venus is also, it's you know, it's an Aries full moon. Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars is in Libra. So Mars, conjuncting the South Node, rules this full moon. But Mars is in Libra. Libra is ruled by Venus. Venus is in Leo. Leo is ruled by the Sun. The Sun is in Libra. The Sun and Venus are the dispositors of this chart, and they are in mutual reception. They're in each other's houses. Venus is in the Sun's house, Leo, and the Sun is in Venus's house, Libra. Venus, as one of the dispositors of the moon's chart, is making 2 important developmental aspects. Venus, opportunity, luck on a day-to-day mundane level. Both Uranus and Jupiter are retrograde right now, as are Saturn, Neptune, Pluto. There could be a sense or a feeling, and this is much more relevant to Jupiter being retrograde right now, but even with Uranus retrograde, there could be a sense of feeling of whatever developments occurred, say between May and the end of August of this year. Somewhere we're pulling back on them and reviewing them, consolidating them. You know, when, in Jupiter's case, when it makes its first rush through a sign, then it retrogrades, and then it's going to make its next rush between December 31st and May of next year. December 31st of this year and May of next year. There's a kind of a, okay, there's a, whatever new beginning or endings that Jupiter has tried to create between May and the end of August of this year, we kind of need to retreat. This is for people who have Jupiter direct in their birth chart. We need to now retreat till the end of the year and kind of organize our lives to when Jupiter finally makes its final push between the end of this year, really in the first 4 or 5 months of next year, 2024, that we're ready to complete that ending and create that new beginning. And with Uranus also retrograde in Taurus, it's going over degrees it has recently gone over. This, what I'm saying, is really for more advanced astrology followers. There could be whatever opportunities, whatever I's are being dotted or T's are crossed. It could have a sense of reworking degrees or reworking areas, or you may have a sense of forward movement and opportunity, but there are links to the past and things that we've been working on and developing for much of this year. Let's just put it that way. I'm going to leave it at that because I'm going to do a video on Jupiter retrograde and I don't want to develop that too much right now. And I don't know how I don't want to jump around too much. It is a video about the Aries full moon, so I want to remain focused on that. What I do want to say is, sometimes full moons can mean heightened emotion and emotional reactions and intuitive reactions, anger, tears, meltdowns, tantrums. The irrational truth. We're not being solar about things. We're being lunar about things. Those things that we've repressed and kept covered up and managed and put a smile on our face and tried to rationalize and manage and muscle our way through. When a full moon happens, how we really feel about something, however irrational it might be, erupts. It could be things under the surface. It could be our fears. It could be... It is also, as we said, a full moon after Mercury's gone direct. So it could be that as Mercury's gone direct, certain things that were agreed to or were confusing or that seemed like, certain things that are related to the Mercury retrograde cycle that occurred between, what was it, August 23rd and September 15th, could finally be working their way out, so that we are seeing October 23rd to September 15th is not that long ago. So any agreements or any things things related to events around that time, and you can particularly look at things that may have had a timeline from August 23rd to September 15th, you may be dealing with the ugly or more realistic truth about them, and that also will create a full moony moment. Mercury is working its way through things that it wants you to know or be aware of, and it has trined Jupiter 3 times. And again, there's this sense or feeling of opportunity and new beginnings since May of this year being created and worked through. But now, somewhere during these retrogrades and with these lunations we're having right now, again, it doesn't mean that opportunities aren't going to continue to occur and come through, but there's also a sense of treading back over what we've done. There's also a very strong sense of, since the beginning of September, but especially the middle of September, since after Mercury went direct, there's really a strong sense of a first wave moving forward between May and the end of August, and that wave now retreating, which allows us to know where we're headed, but then make plans or arrangements around that. And then between January and May of next year, the final push occurs. Again, very characteristic of this time. It doesn't mean that opportunities and manifestations are not occurring to keep us moving forward. The other thing I will remind you is that I've maintained with these retrogrades that things on a personal level don't really start to move forward until after October 14th. So that even with this Virgo new moon, we are in a lunar cycle that was ruled by a stationary Mercury. And while I would not be surprised after September 14th, after the new moon, as we headed towards things like the 21st and beyond that, I would not be surprised that directions are starting to become clear, but they're not galloping yet. And there's more that we're waiting to manage and see resolved. And it could be that as we've headed to this particular full moon, which is occurring in a few hours, we may have seen or had some sort of a glimpse or some sort of a clarity as we've sorted through the confusion of Mercury retrograde, and especially around Mercury going direct around September 15th, as we continue to sort through that and make some final decisions around the things that need those final decisions and start to set a course gradually, gently. It wouldn't surprise me if this full moon has helped support some of those decisions that now starts to give us a path forward. Knowing what that path forward is allows us after October the 15th, 14th, to really get even further clarity and see further development, and to board the plane that we've been waiting to get clarity on and board since the end of July at this point in time. As I said, it doesn't mean, especially with that Leo new moon we had in the Virgo new moon, it does not mean that there have not been developments and that there have not been manifestations, to use a very 2023 word. But we haven't yet quite boarded that plane yet, October 14th onwards. And then there's, of course, the final Jupiterian push in Taurus in the first 4 or 5 months of 2024. And since we've talked about Venus going direct, I've also mentioned that Venus conjunct Mars doesn't happen until February 22nd, I believe, of next year, which is the one transit that Venus was unable to make before she went retrograde. So full moons, as I started to say, could mean heightened emotion, but they can also, on a positive level, mean culmination, offers, visibility. It is not typically a huge or a massive visibility, but temporarily, as either you've headed towards this full moon, and you'll also know where the Libra part of your chart sits and where the Aries part of your chart sits, especially the Libra part of the chart where the Sun is and Mars has been. You're gonna know where and how this visibility has occurred. And with the other supporting transits, it's possible that, there could be announcements or offers or a kind of visibility that lets others know what's going on with it. Could be positive developments. So it could be that kind of visibility with Venus squaring Uranus, trining the North Node, Mercury trining Uranus, and Mars conjuncting the South Node. So it could be, yes, an Aries full moon is supposed to be volatile and emotional, but it's also a kind of, within Aries, the moon, it's a discontentedness. And an Aries moon is very real. So you will know unavoidably if something is irritating you, if something is not quite working for you, if something or someone is not a right fit. The moon seeks to be contented and harmonious. It is our emotional life. It seeks contentment. And an Aries moon is traditionally not a great placement for the moon because it will be agitated. But that's only, and I will say that that's only part of the story. The agitation may well come from Mars conjuncting the South Node. You will have intimations of what needs to be released as you've headed towards this full moon. But the actual process of release, of moving towards the Aries part of the chart and releasing the Libra part of the chart, gets going after October 14th. And of course, October 14th, the week before, week after, and December 14th, the week before, week after, are important dates for this particular solar eclipse. So let's start to pull this together. For some people, as always, a volatile full moon. But I would suspect more than normal for some people, a culmination, visible, supportive full moon as well. Opportunity and manifestations around this full moon for some of us are possible. They could have links to things that have been in development since, let's just say, May into the end of August. That, I think, is a more minor point. There's certainly a need to focus on Venus in Leo. Where's Leo in your chart? What house does it occupy? What does that stand for? And to be Venusian, to take the lessons of Venus retrograde with regard to how you're going to manage your funds and finances, to move towards what is important to you, how you're going to make your resources serve you, and not have you be serving your resources and your expenses in a way that is uncoordinated and not strategic towards where you want to go. The same holds true for your relationships. Venus is poised, swan-like, beautiful, even passive, unagitated, attractive, wishing, hoping, dreaming, but in a way that is connected to source, that is natural, that has growth, and stepping forward. And in the Leo part of the chart after the retrograde, what is it that you want to attract? How can you make yourself more attractive? Not in a forcible way, not in a manipulative way. We do not have to go into the shadow side of Venus, but in a way that it's internal work around one's self-worth. She makes two important aspects related to this full moon. Brings opportunity. Mercury communicates opportunity. Mercury, the ruler of the Virgo new moon cycle that we're in, moving forward finally. Trined Jupiter at the time of the new moon in Virgo. How has Mercury over the past couple of weeks, as it has started to move forward and as Venus has started to move forward, what perhaps financial or relationship or visibility or luck opportunity has been created for you in the middle of all the madness, in the middle of feeling like certain things are moving forward and certain things are not, and where's this going and where's that going, and why did Mercury retrograde and going direct on September 15th teach me or show me these things? And I thought I was headed this way, but now I'm headed this way. But at the same time, there's been a curious support. The only place where the support is not going to be seen is if you're in denial about something. There's something very magical about this time. We're heading towards the eclipses, and God has taken the wheel and is in the process. And this is a very unnerving feeling for a lot of people, where all of a sudden, and this has so much to do with Mercury going direct recently and Venus to some extent going direct relatively recently, where all those things and plans and things we thought we were heading somewhere, whatever it is, all of a sudden it's just like, where, what? And yet the support is there with some of these transits. There's also a need to keep your wits about you. Very strong, because Venus is now direct after being retrograde, requiring us to look at those lessons. And she's getting ready to trine the North Node. And Mars, the planet of action, boundaries, conflict, red-blooded, testosterone, warrior, hunter-gatherer, pursuer of goals, are action, meeting up with the South Node at around the time of the full moon. So decisions have been made and are in the air. And if we really think about it, some aspects of these timelines may take us into 2024, but we have intimations of which way and which direction we are trying to move into and heading towards, and what is it that we need to release. And we can, especially over the next week or so, especially over the weekend, especially till Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we can be patient and see what else continues to develop. The two transits that are closest to this full moon are related to Uranus, Venus squaring Uranus and Mercury trining Uranus. And those transits may already have found their way into your life. And they may already have been working since the middle of September, when both Venus and Mercury trined Jupiter in Taurus. And at around the time of this full moon, and remember, full moon's 48 hours, think back another 24, 48 hours and see what felt full moony. Agitation, perhaps. Conflict, emotional reactions. But at the same time, has there not been a resolution, or has there not been support? There's a need to remember with the new moon cycle that we're in. And one of the transits that Mercury is getting ready to make, I don't consider that transit necessarily part of this full moon, but it's getting ready to make it pretty soon, again on October 2nd or 3rd, is that Mercury will oppose Neptune. And the new moon in Virgo that we had 2 weeks ago not only trined Uranus, it also opposed Neptune. It's possible that over the past couple of weeks, and as we head into next week, there is a strong sense of having to communicate about loss, or things that I felt deceptive, or things that I felt gaslighty as well. And I would continue to keep an eye out for that over the next 4 or 5 days, because Mercury has not completely opposed Neptune yet. And so over the weekend, over the Monday, Tuesday of next week, Wednesday, you may feel called upon to use mercurial powers, communication, rationality, transactions, to really get clear and in some cases communicate and take action to either make some decisions around parties that are draining you, that are being deceptive, that are being shady, or actually take action, communicate, and say stop that, or here's the consequence, or whatever that's going to be as well. So somewhere I don't consider, but again, some of the things that have retained visibility, some of the things you may have resolved, some of the things, there's definitely something about this full moon that is bringing closure to certain things that were confusing, or that were the result of the Mercury retrograde cycle we just had. No question about it. That's one part of and that could be the part that was the most emotionally charged. And then there's the Venus part of things that has felt like and that has provided support and a balm through this thing. So the transits to Taurus, the preparing transits to the North Node provide the support. The new moon cycle that we're in, looking at Neptune, and Mercury getting ready to look at Neptune, might be the emotional side or aspect that we still continue to deal with over the next few days. And actually, once Venus moves into Virgo around October the 9th, she will oppose Saturn and eventually oppose Neptune as well. So somewhere this theme, we're going to, but not to not confuse you, the emotional part of this full moon may well have to do with us feeling like whatever it is that the Mercury retrograde brought to our visibility that we did not know before as we were heading into Mercury retrograde, that we have had to deal with. Dot the I, cross the T, stop the bleeding, stop the loss, call out the deception. And with Mercury getting ready to oppose Neptune over October 2nd, 3rd, we may still feel like over the weekend and into Monday, Tuesday, we still have some contending to do with that. The opportunity, the visibility is also very much, the positive side of things is also very much part of this full moon, and may be provided by Venus and even by Mercury as they've squared from Leo or trined from Virgo, Uranus and Jupiter in Taurus, and as Venus gets ready to trine the North Node in Aries. If things don't feel completely positive for you around the time of this full moon, it could very well be that you're getting strong intimations of what the eclipses are trying to tell you, with Mars conjuncting the South Node. And you may be a little bit in denial about them. That's just going to be my gentle and humble suggestion. And as you head towards the middle of December and the end of January of next year and March of next year, you may look back to this time and realize that either you got on board with what you need to release, or we're still a little bit in denial, and the release is inevitable as you head towards March of next year. So for you who are finding this full moon overwhelmingly negative, I will gently kind of challenge you to think through what it is you think that the Mars conjunct South Node is encouraging you to release, and there is enough opportunity around this full moon to kind of, especially if you know where the Aries and Taurus part of your chart are, where is it that you're supposed to go? Where is it that you're supposed to head to? In the early part of this week, this is two more things I want to say. In the early part of this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we had Mars opposing Chiron. And Mars is in Libra and Chiron is in Aries. Aries full moon. That's why I'm bringing this up. And Chiron is trying to bring our wounds in the Aries part of our chart to our awareness and consciousness, and is trying to heal them. Often a painful process, because until you acknowledge and feel and acknowledge the wound, you're not really going to be able to start to move towards healing it. You have to first recognize and not be in denial about it, and not be covering it up, and not have anesthetized or numbed it so much that you just decided to lose all awareness of it. So events occur in the Aries part of the chart that bring up your awareness of this wound, so that you can, and Chiron will work with you to heal it. You may have taken certain actions in the earlier part of this week, and I'd encourage you to think about that, to heal. So Mars in Libra may have taken certain actions in the Libra part of the chart to support this healing in the Aries part of the chart. It's been an eventful week, and it will continue to be eventful till October 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Because both Mercury and Venus, but especially Mercury, are winding down their retrograde cycles and are making their final trips through the shadow degrees, through the degrees that they've gone over 3 times this year. And then there's the final fact and reminder that I'm going to say, that this full moon is actually in conversation. It is in Aries where the North Node is. We do not have a North Node eclipse in Aries over the next 2 weeks, next month or so. The North Node eclipse is in Taurus, the last one in Taurus. But somewhere, whatever's coming up at around the time of this full moon, in our awareness, in our emotional awareness and our visibility, it's setting up what we need to release starting October 14th to March of next year. And it may be bringing up a certain amount of visibility with regard to where we're headed in the Aries part of the chart. So as full moons go, in my humble opinion, there's a certain amount of positive. This full moon has a bit of a halo around it. It would not surprise me if for some people there's been a certain amount of visibility and opportunity. But it has not been an unemotional week. And as I said, the emotions may well, and the full mooniness and the temper tantrums and the anger may well be related to Mercury going direct and on its way to oppose Neptune on October 2nd, 3rd. So knowing what you now know through Mercury going direct around September 15th, and having to deal with energies that don't feel completely straightforward, maybe what has caused you full moon emotion and angst. But there's also a certain amount of support with regard to forward movement and where it is that you're meant to go and where the growth is. I'm going to leave it at that. And we will start thinking about boarding the plane after October the 14th. And keep appreciating a faster and faster moving Mercury to help move us forward with manifestations and things that are a little bit more concrete and that we can lean on and rely on at this point in time, because we really haven't had that since July, August of this year. We've had things develop, but we really need to see the I's dotted, the T's crossed, and I'm sure we're all itching for a certain amount of forward movement as well. All right. If you found this useful, feel free to share, tell your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel. If you subscribe, there'll be a bell icon. Click the wiggly bell on top so you're notified when I do new videos. You're welcome to leave comments or like the video if you did so. It sort of gives the video more circulation. Thank you to those of you who do. I am truly grateful for that. And I will leave it at that and talk to you soon.